the Las Vegas Raiders. The Tank Bowl happened on Sunday between the Raiders and the Giants, and it was exactly what you expected. It was a complete, utter mess. It was just an utter mess, and one player that was not there was Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby was not in the mix in this one because he was shut down.
It's because he was hurt, right? I thought he was hurt.
Well, that's what they're saying, because he's shut down due to
Oh.
a knee injury, placing him on injured reserve. However, it was not very happy. Maxx Crosby was not very happy with this, and even showing even more of he's not happy with it. He put out on social media he was playing basketball with his daughter, jumping on a trampoline, showing that his knee was just fine. He was, quote, not a happy camper when he was told he was being shut down. This is an obvious tank. Obviously, this is blatant. Now, both sides did it. The Giants are doing it too. And obviously, what the Giants did was funny as well. But when you're looking at it with Maxx Crosby, this is your best player. Your best player wants to be on the field. Your best player has blatantly come out saying he doesn't care about draft picks. That's not his job to care about. He's completely right. The players want to win the football game. They don't have to care about when it comes. And no player should care about, hey, we should lose this game because maybe we'll get a first-round pick. Maybe we'll get the first overall pick. We in this NFL world, we don't know what players are going to be there next year. And what I'm saying here is I don't think Maxx Crosby is going to be a Raider next season because of this relationship that's been completely broken now.
I think you're probably right on that one. And I do have a lot of thoughts just on this game and Crosby in general. But the one thing I want to throw out here is that, with college looking like what it does with gambling and even in the NFL, like a lot of questions of, the integrity of the game. This was kind of refreshing to hear from Crosby. Like, look, my job is literally just to go out there, be the best at what I do as possible, like just to crush everyone in front of me. I do not care if we win or lose. My job is entirely not tied to that. Like, I am going to take over. If we win, we win. We lose. I don't care. That kind of felt good, because is it exactly, the whole, like, I want to win mantra? No, but it's almost refreshing in the fact that doesn't matter. Like, I am going to come out here and just crush what's in front of me. And that was just a glimmer of hope, if you will, in there that I was actually a really big fan of. I also wanted to throw in, I took away the fact that Crosby has sponsorships in his crib. Wherever that was, that video was taken, he had Papa John's on his wall. I mean, I don't know how you get to that. Can I get some stuff on my back wall here? I think that'd be epic. But yeah, Crosby and that whole situation it's something's wrong with the Raiders if you're not going to be keeping Maxx Crosby, because you alluded to the fact that he might not be there next season. Then who do the Raiders have? Maxx Crosby has been the Raiders. It's kind of like what the Texans were with J.J. Watt. There was a little bit of who are the Texans without J.J. Watt? He was everywhere in Houston. Not quite to the same extent, but who are the Raiders without Maxx Crosby? He's kind of been the guy for the Raiders. They even tried to do this whole rebuild and rebrand, if you will, this offseason with, Pete Carroll and Geno, and it feels like it's still the Maxx Crosby Raiders. And if they're going to walk away from him, isn't that a terrible decision?
Yeah, this is their worst season since 2006 when they went 2-14 as well. Now this could turn to be their worst season, 2-15, because now obviously they play a 17th game. They have a 193 point differential. Like that is what they have right now. A negative 193 point differential is insane. It is absolutely insane. In the last 20 something years, since they lost the Super Bowl, in 2002, since they lost the Super Bowl in 2002, they've only had 3 seasons where they've had a positive differential. That's it. A positive differential. And that is insane. They've only made the playoffs for 2 times since they've lost the Super Bowl in 2002. They lost the wild card in 2016. They lost in 2021. Pete Carroll, he came in this season and didn't change it at all. Now, obviously, the Geno Smith situation, that thing didn't work out great. He's had the league leading in interceptions through 2 of them in the game against the Giants. Giants won this game, by the way, 34-10. Is Pete Carroll the answer? Is Pete Carroll the answer for this rebuild? Because, look, the Raiders have a problem since 2002. The Raiders have had a problem since they've lost the Super Bowl in 2002, since they've made it all that way. Is Pete Carroll the answer, or do they need to find somebody else? Or is it not the even route they need to look at? It doesn't matter who the head coach is. It's even deeper than that.
I don't think it's Geez, excuse me. I was thinking I'm trying to draw a parallel to the Broncos here because the Broncos have had a pretty quick turnaround with Peyton, from 5-12 to 8-9 to 10-7 and 13-3. Relatively quick turnaround with Peyton.
But they
I
were
don't
only out for just a few years. They had the Manning
right.
experience, right? This
And I
is
think
this
that
is 2
one
decades of failure.
that comes down to the ownership, in my opinion. The Broncos ownership is very different. And I think that, when you talk about how far the Broncos kind of were out of things versus the Raiders out of things, Pete Carroll came into a much different situation. I think that that's part of it too. So it's kind of like one of those where you wouldn't expect a new coach to come into Toledo and win them a national championship right away, would you? Like, you kind of have to give them some time to build up some momentum here. I personally don't think that this is Pete Carroll's fault. I think that maybe he's not handling everything perfectly, but you got to give him a little bit of grace here. There's definitely runway that you need to give him, especially considering how old he is, right? I don't think he's necessarily doing things the way that 2025 or now in just a few days, 2026 NFL works. Like, this might be closer to 2000s NFL. And I don't think that there was the ridiculous turnaround at that time. Obviously, there were going to be outliers, but I feel like it's a much more old school approach. And I'm not counting Pete Carroll out yet. Now, in 2 years, 3 years, this is one of those situations where I am okay with pulling the plug a little early. We talk so much about NFL ownership and NFL teams pulling the plug on coaches, players too early nowadays, as opposed to, the mid 2000s. This is a situation where Pete Carroll is he 72 at this point? I mean, he's ridiculously old. You might be in a position where you can move on. He's 74.
74.
You could probably pull that and get to a younger group, younger audience. If the short-term experiment just isn't working out, the Raiders need to find some sort of success quickly. And if they end up losing out on Crosby and then it doesn't pan out, the whole organization is in a worse spot than what it was when Pete Carroll took over, which is actually crazy to say considering just how bad it looks over there in Vegas.
If you count interim head coaches, if they move on from Pete Carroll in 2026, this will be their 6th head coach since 2020.
Wow.
That's insane. That's absolutely. I mean, you talk about like Browns quarterbacks putting the names on the back of a jersey. You have to put one on the back of a clipboard. The amount of names that's going to be here putting in there. I mean, look, the fact that you are set up for success. If you don't think Pete Carroll is the right guy, you got to do what you got to do. You got to move on. Ownership group with Davis, obviously Tom Brady into that mix right now as well. You have to move on. You have to make the right decision because you have an 80% chance of having the number 1 overall pick. You have an opportunity at maybe even moving on for Maxx Crosby that might put you in more first-round picks as well. I mean, think about it. Dallas Cowboy have 2 first-round picks this year. They always say they want a pass rusher after the Parsons trade. Imagine if they walked in to the NFL draft after trading Maxx Crosby with the 1st overall pick and probably 2 in the teens, and you still decide to trade that number 1 overall pick. That's my take on this one. I still think if you win this number 1 overall pick, you have an 80% chance right now. If you lose, I think it's against the Chiefs on Sunday, then you will have number 1 overall pick. You'll have it.
Yep.
Now, if you look at the quarterbacks that are in this mix, sure, you could say maybe a Mendoza or something like that might be able to save your franchise. Who knows? Or maybe he's a Jamarcus Russell and he turns out to not be. He turns out to be a great college guy and not an NFL guy. If you look at what the Chicago Bears did, that is the blueprint of the future right now. The Chicago Bears obviously won the NFC North right now. Last year, they were last in the NFC North. One of the biggest things that was the biggest changes is that they drafted their quarterback, sure, but they focused on trenches this free agency. I think the Raiders need to do the complete opposite. They need to use their draft capital and focus on the trenches and build up with the young trenches and then go find a quarterback in the future. They still got to pay Geno Smith regardless next year. He's on a 2-year contract right now. Whether you think he's your quarterback of the future, that's a large contract to pay. And you gave up draft capital to have Geno Smith. The amount of defensive players in the trenches this year in the NFL draft, the talent is very high. When you look at guys from Texas Tech, you look at guys from Miami, just for example, I think that you need to use your draft capital to build the trenches. Focus on your quarterback later. This is not going to get rebuilt in 1 year.
No, it's not going to turn around in 1 year. And one of the first teams that comes to mind when you look at like a plethora of first round talent is in the 2023 draft when the Texans went 2-3 and kind of single handedly in one offseason turned their franchise around. I'm not saying that that's the same case for these Raiders here, but one of their picks was Will Anderson Jr. Right,
yeah.
at the defensive end. edge rusher kind of position there. So keep that in mind if you're Las Vegas. I don't think you probably end up with, a game-changing quarterback. I think you probably have to roll the dice and kind of bolster up the supporting. I'm with you on that one, the supporting roles. This is a really challenging spot for Las Vegas to be in, but hey, you lost the tank bowl. The Giants can't even tank right. You've got an opportunity to at least take a step in the right direction and fix the trajectory of this franchise. Because right now it's ugly.
2 years in a row, the New York Giants were in position in the final weeks of the season to hold number one pick. They won the games at the end of the season when it didn't matter anymore. They won the games. The players were basically throwing the finger at the Giants front office for that, saying, look, we don't care. 2 years in a row now, they're going to miss out number one overall pick. Now, obviously, it worked out pretty good for them last year. They traded up for Jackson Dart. They got Abdul Carter. We'll see how that works. Carter's been seen to have some off-field issues. But they went and they focused on their defensive trenches first before they went and got their quarterback. That's what the Raiders need to do 100% moving forward. Worry about the quarterback later, because if you don't have the pieces around him, that quarterback doesn't matter. We're seeing it happen with other quarterbacks in the league. We'll look at Joe Burrow with his terrible defense right now. Yeah. What has Joe Burrow got? Nothing. He's got his receivers, but he's got no offensive line. He's got no defense. It's like that meme over and over again where it's like Joe Burrow throws a touchdown pass to Jamar Chase, but he can't throw the ball because he's sacked. But like if it's Joe Burrow throwing the touchdown to anybody, but if he's got Sewell blocking him, like that was the meme that came out during the draft.
Yeah,
it's the same thing with the Raiders. They have to build everything else. Worry about the quarterback later. We're seeing a huge resurgence of quarterbacks pop up. Sam Darnold's and Daniel Jones. Look what Malik Willis is doing. Look what Mac Jones is doing. Just fill the hole with a Band-Aid until you are ready to draft that franchise quarterback, till your franchise is ready to have a franchise quarterback. The Raiders are just not there right now.